The med bay on Station Ardent 7 hummed with a steady rhythm, the faint vibration of the station's engines underfoot mixing with the low hum of medical equipment. Jaren moved quietly, his boots clicking softly against the polished floor. He had been on this station for nearly 2 years, a human among a mix of species, each stranger and more curious than the last. Some came seeking refuge, some came seeking repair, and some came only to observe, but none had been like her. The alien lay on the metallic stretcher, her body broken and scarred from battles that had likely torn across star systems. Her skin was pale, but it shimmered in a way that made it seem almost alive. Silver threads rippling beneath the surface. Her hair, or what could be called hair, flowed in streaks of violet and blue, catching the harsh lights and giving the illusion of movement even when she was perfectly still. Her armor was shattered, mangled into jagged pieces that hung from her body like ragged banners. Some of the wounds were deep, raw, and burning, as though each strike had carried the fury of 1,000 suns. Jaren didn't know what to make of her. He had treated injured aliens before, some ferocious, some fragile. He had never treated someone who radiated such quiet power, even in unconsciousness. Yet, as he approached, he felt no fear. Perhaps it was the human part of him that always sought to help, even when the situation was dangerous. He pulled on gloves and leaned over her. "All right," he murmured into the translator, his voice steady though his mind raced. "Let's get you cleaned up." He gently tested a wound on her arm. She flinched slightly, a tiny ripple of movement, almost imperceptible. He swallowed hard and carefully began his work. As he cleaned the first deep gash, Jaren noticed the strange patterns along her veins. They glowed faintly, pulsing with a rhythm that almost seemed alive. He hesitated, wondering if it was natural or some kind of alien energy he had never encountered. He had read reports about energy pulses in alien physiology, but nothing like this. The lines seemed to respond to his touch, vibrating softly when his hands brushed over them. He shook off the unease. He was a medic. He had a job. He would not speculate. He cleaned and dressed her wounds meticulously, the human need to heal overpowering any fear. Time seemed to stretch in the sterile quiet of the medbay. The station's loudspeakers occasionally crackled with messages from the docking bay or distant patrols, but for the moment, the outside galaxy did not exist. There was only him, her, and the fragile line between life and death he held in his hands. At some point, she stirred. A soft, almost musical hum escaped her lips, and Jaren froze. He hadn't expected her to move so soon. Her eyes flicked open, revealing pupils like liquid silver that seemed to see through him. He jumped back slightly, hands still hovering near her arm. She didn't speak, didn't move further, but her gaze lingered. He felt like she was measuring him, judging him, testing him in some way he couldn't understand. "It's okay," he said quietly, unsure if she could even comprehend him. "I'm just helping."
"You're going to be fine."
His voice wavered slightly, betraying the calm he tried to project. The alien made another soft sound, a vibration that tickled his ears more than it alarmed him, almost like a sigh or perhaps curiosity. He worked slowly, carefully removing shards of armor embedded in her flesh. Every motion revealed more of the body beneath, and Jaren could see the incredible musculature, strong but refined, built for speed and endurance. He realized she was not only a warrior, she was a master of combat. The wounds on her were brutal, but they hadn't broken her. The medbay's antiseptic filled with the sharp scent of alien blood, and Jaren could feel his heart pounding. While he worked, his mind wandered briefly. He had heard rumors of galactic warriors capable of annihilating fleets single-handedly, but those were tales, stories meant to inspire fear or awe. Could this really be one of them? No, impossible. If she were that powerful, he thought, she wouldn't be lying here bleeding and helpless. And yet, there was something in her presence that made him feel like the stories were pale shadows of reality. The station's intercom crackled again. A voice reported a skirmish near the outer docking rings, some minor pirate activity. Jaren ignored it. This alien, this patient, was far more pressing. Each second he delayed could mean the difference between life and death. He moved to her leg wound, carefully cleaning and applying bandages. He noticed faint energy lines crisscrossing under her skin, glowing gently where the light struck. Each pulse seemed synchronized with her heartbeat, and he realized with a shiver that this wasn't normal. She stirred again, and this time her gaze focused on him. Jaren felt the tiniest pull at his consciousness, a subtle pressure in the back of his mind. It wasn't hostile, not exactly, but it was probing, assessing, reading. He blinked, trying not to flinch, and went on with his work. The hum of the station, the blinking lights, the metallic tang in the air, all of it became background noise compared to the quiet, simmering energy that radiated from her. Minutes turned into an hour. Jaren paused to breathe, leaning back against a console. He looked at her and wondered what kind of battles she had fought, what worlds she had seen, what enemies she had faced. There was a legend in the human colonies about a warrior known only as the Empress of the Stars, who could topple fleets and crush armies alone. He laughed softly at the thought. Surely this was just another rumor. No one could be that powerful. And yet, as he observed her, he realized he had been touched by someone extraordinary. Something about the way her muscles relaxed when he touched them, the subtle energy that seemed to respond to his touch, the faint pulse in the room. It all suggested that she was no ordinary alien. He didn't know it yet, but the galaxy's most formidable warrior was lying before him, trusting a human she did not even know. He finished dressing the last of her wounds, smoothing the bandages over deep cuts and burns. His hands were sticky with antiseptic and blood, but he felt a strange pride. He had saved her. He had given her life back, even if only temporarily. He stepped back, wiping his hands, and watched as her chest rose and fell with steady breaths. She was resting now, quiet, serene, but there was an intensity beneath the surface that made Jaren uneasy. He tried to leave, thinking the patient needed rest, but a soft hum stopped him. The alien's eyes opened fully, and for the first time, she spoke. Though the words were not in any language he recognized. Instead, they were vibrations, resonating through the air, through the floor, through his very bones. He staggered back, startled, but then a translator device on his belt activated automatically, translating her tone. Human. Healer. Yes. I cleaned your wounds, that's all. A faint smile crossed her lips. Human-like, yet alien in its perfection. You do not know who you touch. He thought he had just saved a life, but she looked at him now as if she held the power to take worlds, to rewrite the balance of the galaxy. And in that moment he realized how small his human courage really was, yet how significant it had become in this quiet room on a lonely station. She shifted slightly, testing her strength, and Jaren saw her rise, almost effortlessly, despite her injuries. It was then he noticed the subtle glimmer of power, a faint aura of energy radiating from her. This was no ordinary alien. This was a warrior whose reputation filled entire star systems with fear and awe. And yet here she was relying on a human to patch her wounds, to tend to her vulnerabilities, to restore her body without judgment or hesitation. Jaren didn't understand it, and he didn't need to. For now, his task was simple. He had saved a life. But he would soon learn that this life was not ordinary. This life could change the fate of civilizations, alter the course of wars, and perhaps even decide the survival of humanity itself. As he stepped back, wiping his hands for the last time, he felt the weight of the galaxy settle into that medbay, the quiet hum of the station, the faint pulse of energy from the alien before him, and the simple act of human compassion. Together, They formed a moment that would echo far beyond the walls of this station. He had no idea that by cleaning her wounds he had touched the galaxy's most powerful warrior, and he had no idea how quickly that act would set events in motion that would change the course of human history. For now, there was only quiet. And in that quiet, the first thread of a story began. A story of humanity, of courage, of unexpected power, and of a human who, without knowing it, had become part of a legend. Jaren could not sleep that night. The medbay lights had dimmed, but he found himself pacing, glancing at the figure resting on the stretcher. The alien Empress lay still, her chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm. To any observer, she might have seemed calm, but Jaren sensed the subtle tension beneath the surface. Every muscle, every movement carried control, precision, and restrained power. He shook his head. I patched her up. That's it, nothing else matters. But the truth was, nothing could prepare him for what came next. By morning, the station's intercom crackled with urgent warnings. Several sensor reports had detected unknown energy signatures moving dangerously close to the outer docking rings. Jaren frowned. Station Ardent 7 was not a military hub. It was a research and refueling station, neutral in most galactic conflicts. Still, the warnings grew louder, more frantic. He turned back to the Empress. She was awake now, sitting up, surveying the room with a sharp, calculating gaze. Her movements were fluid, precise, and despite the injuries Jaren had tended, she radiated strength. It was impossible not to notice the way her silver-patterned skin pulsed faintly, as if alive, responding to every flicker of light in the room. You are awake, Jaren said, cautiously.
You should rest. Your injuries.
They are minor, she interrupted, her voice calm but firm. Each word resonated with authority, even when she spoke softly. Jaren blinked. Minor? The wounds had been severe. Deep cuts, burns, broken armor. He had spent hours treating her. Minor? Her gaze swept the room, resting on him briefly, then scanning the walls, the ceiling, the exits. It was a scan, a calculation, a silent assessment of threats. Jaren felt an unfamiliar chill in his spine. He realized that while he had patched her physically, he had no idea what he had stepped into. This alien, this being, was a force of nature. Who are you? He asked, carefully. She studied him for a long moment, her eyes narrowing slightly. I am called the Empress of the Stars, she said finally, her words deliberate. I command fleets, armies, and entire systems. My enemies fear me. And yet, you healed me. Jaren blinked. He tried to suppress the sudden wave of awe and fear. I didn't know. You did not know, she said, her voice calm, almost amused. And yet, your hands were steady.
Your heart pure. That is rare among your kind.
He hesitated. My kind? The humans, she said simply, as if the concept were obvious. I have observed your species. You are weak compared to others in the galaxy. Yet you endure. You fight when others flee. You survive when others perish. There is
Something in you?
Jaren swallowed hard, unsure how to respond. He had always believed humans were ordinary. He had lived among aliens for years, had seen their technology, their power, their warships, their weapons. And yet, here she was, acknowledging humanity in a way he had never imagined. Before he could speak, the intercom blared again. Warning! Unauthorized fleet approaching at high velocity. Identification unknown. All personnel secure stations immediately. Jaren froze. The Empress rose from the stretcher, unassisted, her wounds seemingly healed beyond what his bandages had done. She moved with grace, fluid as water, yet sharp as a blade. There was no hint of pain or weakness in her step. Her eyes flicked toward the docking bay, calculating. They are coming for me. she said simply, almost casually. And by extension, for you. For me? Jaren asked, heart pounding. They will know you aided me, she explained, her voice calm but dangerous. You have chosen a side by helping me, human.
That is enough for some to hunt you. Jaren felt a cold weight settle over him.
He was just a medic, a simple human trying to live his life. Now, without intending it, he had become part of a galactic war. He wanted to protest, to run, to hide. But the Empress's gaze pinned him in place. There was no escape. Not that he would have tried, not really. Something about her presence inspired trust, even if it also terrified him. Stay behind me, she instructed. Her voice left no room for argument. Jaren obeyed, stepping close as she moved toward the medbay exit. Outside, chaos was already unfolding. Several sleek ships, their hulls black with jagged silver markings, darted through the station's outer defenses. Energy beams cut across space, striking the station's shields. Alarms blared, warning lights flashed. The docking bay personnel scrambled, unsure whether to flee or fight. The Empress raised her hand. A subtle pulse of energy radiated from her palm. Invisible at first, but then the approaching ships shuddered. Shields failed. Engines sparked. One vessel was thrown violently, spinning uncontrollably into the void. Another fired a volley of plasma bolts, but they dissipated harmlessly as an invisible barrier surrounded her. Jaren watched in disbelief. His human mind struggled to process what he was seeing. The Empress was not merely surviving, she was dominating. She had faced fleets alone and emerged victorious, and she had done it with minimal effort. They will not stop, she said quietly, almost to herself. Then, louder, Human, stay close. They moved through the station corridors as alarms blared and security personnel shouted. Jaren kept pace, astonished at her speed and precision. I moved not like someone in pain, but like a predator navigating its territory. They reached the observation deck. Through the thick glass, the battle in orbit unfolded. More ships arrived, drawn by reports of the Empress, responding to her presence like moths to a flame. Yet each attack was met with calculated deflection, precise energy pulses, and near-instant destruction. Jaren could feel the weight of history pressing down on him. He realized that the Empress's enemies were numerous, powerful, and relentless, but here she stood, alive, moving, calculating, and ready. And he, a single human, was witnessing it firsthand. She is incredible, he whispered. She is, said a voice behind him. He turned to see the Empress looking at him with a faint, almost approving smile. But you are remarkable in a different way. You do not flee. You do not panic. You trust, even when there is no reason to trust. That quality, rare among humans, is why I allowed you to touch me, why I allowed you to heal me. Jaren swallowed, trying to steady his racing heart. I didn't know what I was doing. I just helped. And that is what makes humans dangerous, she said. You act without knowing the full scope of consequences. You are unpredictable. That makes you alive. The station shuddered as another wave of enemy fire hit the outer hull. The Empress barely flinched, her eyes narrowed, and energy began to gather around her, faint at first, then brighter, illuminating the observation deck in a silver glow. You must understand something, human, she said, her voice low and commanding. Your species is underestimated by the galaxy. Many believe you are weak, slow, and fragile. They have never faced humans in full resolve. They have never seen you act without fear, without hesitation, without calculation, yet with heart. That is a weapon far more potent than any fleet. Jaren felt both pride and fear. pride that a being of unimaginable power recognized humanity's potential, and fear that he was now entangled in events beyond comprehension. The battle outside reached its climax. Enemy ships approached rapidly, firing concentrated volleys. Jaren instinctively ducked as a massive beam of energy hit the station's outer hull, but the Empress raised her hands, and in a motion that was almost graceful, almost casual, the incoming projectiles disintegrated before reaching the station. "You see," she said, looking at him, "power is not always measured by fleets or weapons. Sometimes it is measured by resolve, by courage, and by action when it is least expected. That is what you did for me, human. That is why you remain alive." Jaren could only nod, still trying to process everything. He had patched wounds, and in doing so he had set events in motion that now shaped battles in space, lives across star systems, and perhaps the fate of humanity itself. The Empress turned her gaze back to the viewport, studying the chaos outside. Then she turned back to him, her expression unreadable. "Your world may be small, human, but it has potential. I will show them the truth of humans. I will make them see why your kind endures. And you will witness it." For the first time, Jaren felt the weight of hope mixed with fear. Humanity was about to step onto a stage it had never been prepared for, and somehow, against impossible odds, it would not just survive, it would make the galaxy reconsider everything it thought it knew about humans. The Empress extended a hand toward him. "Come," she said simply. "You have healed me. Now you will see the consequences of your actions." Jaren hesitated, then took her hand. He felt a surge of energy, not entirely alien, not entirely human, but a mixture of power and intent that he could barely comprehend. Together, they moved toward the station's docking bay, where a ship awaited, a vessel unlike anything he had ever seen, sleek, silent, and brimming with latent power. As they boarded, Jaren realized that his life, his understanding of humanity, and the fate of entire star systems were about to change. The galaxy was watching, and humans, long underestimated, were about to be seen in a way no one could ignore. And he, a simple medic who had merely done his job, was at the center of it all. The ship hummed softly as it detached from Station Ardent 7, gliding into open space. Jaren held onto the railing, feeling the smooth vibrations of the vessel beneath him. He had never seen a ship like this before. Its hull was sleek, almost liquid in its curves, and faint energy lines traced along its surface, pulsing in rhythm with something he could not understand. It was alive, or at least it felt alive. The Empress moved ahead of him, her steps sure and controlled, yet light. She didn't need weapons, didn't need armor. Jaren realized that the aura of power around her was enough to make even the most advanced warships hesitate. She paused near a viewport, watching the galaxy stretch out before them. Stars glinted like scattered diamonds, but Jaren could see tension in the currents of energy surrounding certain systems, an invisible map of conflict and danger. "They are gathering," she said softly, almost to herself. "Several fleets are on alert because of me. They have sent hunters, assassins, and spies. They do not know what they face." Jaren swallowed, gripping the railing tighter. "And what do we face?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. She looked at him, her silver-patterned skin reflecting the soft light, her eyes shimmering like molten metal. "We face the truth of the galaxy, human. We face those who believe humans are insignificant, and we face the consequences of mercy." Jaren hesitated. He had merely healed her wounds, saved her life. How could that have triggered all of this? Yet, as he looked at her, he understood. Mercy, courage, and human action, even small, could ripple outward and alter events in ways no one expected. The Empress was living proof of that. "You will see," she said, moving to a console that floated effortlessly in midair. Her hands hovered above the controls, not pressing, but commanding. The ship responded instantly, lights blinking as systems powered up with a subtle hum. Your kind is underestimated. That is a mistake they will not recover from. Jaren watched, awestruck, as the ship's displays revealed the positions of hostile fleets. Red blips moved across star maps, converging toward multiple human colonies. The Empress swiped her hand through the air, and the maps shifted, highlighting vulnerabilities, trajectories, and attack patterns. They plan to strike simultaneously, she said, but they underestimate the humans who defend themselves. Jaren felt a surge of pride mixed with fear. Humans were not fighters by nature. They were resourceful, adaptable, and stubborn. He had seen those qualities in colonies resisting pirates, in engineers improvising on failing ships, in soldiers holding the line against overwhelming odds, but he had never imagined that such traits could influence galactic warfare. The Empress turned to him, her gaze piercing. You will witness it soon enough. Your species has potential. Potential they will recognize only after it is too late. Dog? Dog clapped as the ship raced through space. Jaren watched quietly as she trained, preparing for the inevitable confrontation. She moved with a precision that was almost unnatural, each motion perfect, almost artistic, yet deadly. Energy flowed from her body, coalescing into controlled pulses that could rip apart enemy shields or redirect attacks before they reached the ship. Jaren could feel the raw power, and he realized the legends were true. She was unstoppable. Suddenly, alarms blared. Multiple fleets had converged on a nearby system. The Empress's expression remained calm, almost serene, but her eyes flicked to Jaren. They will test me first, she said, and they will fail. The ship accelerated toward the conflict, gliding through space with astonishing speed. Red fleets glinted against the black void, sleek and menacing, bristling with weapons. The Empress raised her hands, and Jaren felt the energy before he saw it. The ship itself seemed to bend to her will. Shields rising, weapons aligning, energy pulses forming a protective barrier around them. Stay behind me, she instructed. Jaren obeyed, gripping the railing tightly. He watched as the first wave of enemy fire approached. Plasma bolts slammed into the energy barrier, sparks flying, but the ship remained unharmed. The Empress's aura expanded subtly, a visible ripple in the surrounding energy field, and Jaren realized that the barrier was not just technology, it was her power, channeled through the ship. She raised her hands, and the first enemy vessel disintegrated in a blinding flash. Jaren's jaw dropped. Another ship fired missiles, but they were halted mid-air, shredded by invisible forces before they could reach their target. They are strong, but not strong enough, she said quietly. Humans will learn that their courage can tip the balance, even in the face of overwhelming odds. Jaren watched as more ships approached, and for the first time he understood. The galaxy had always seen humans as weak, insignificant, predictable. But humans were neither weak nor predictable. They were stubborn, adaptable, resourceful, and capable of courage that defied expectation. He felt that same courage stirring within himself, a deep human resilience he had always taken for granted. The Empress continued her attack, moving like a shadow through space, her energy pulses precise, lethal, yet controlled. Entire fleets fell before her, disintegrating in seconds, their weapons rendered useless. And throughout it all, Jaren felt a strange sense of pride, not just for the Empress, but for humanity itself. Humans had not yet touched the battlefield directly, yet their influence was already being felt through his actions, through the simple act of healing. Hours turned into days as the battle continued. The Empress allowed no pause, no hesitation. Every enemy fleet that approached was met with calculated precision. Jaren watched, exhausted, amazed, and increasingly certain that this being could have conquered the galaxy alone. And yet, she had chosen to act alongside humans, to elevate them in her own way. At one point, the Empress turned to him. "Do you see now?" she asked. Her voice was calm, almost gentle, but carried the weight of absolute authority. Your kind is underestimated. They do not see your courage, your ingenuity, your determination.
That is their mistake, and that mistake will cost them dearly.
Jaren nodded, still breathless from witnessing the display of power. I understand, he said. Humans are stronger than they look. Yes, she said simply, and they are yours to protect should you choose to do so. The battle reached its climax as the last enemy fleet formed a blockade near a vital human colony. The Empress accelerated, moving with near impossible speed. She shattered the blockade, dismantling ships before they could fire a single shot. Energy arcs lanced outward from her, and for the first time, Jaren saw the true extent of her power. The ability to reshape space itself, to bend matter, to control the flow of energy. The colony was safe. Its citizens watched in awe as the fleets disintegrated or fled, unable to comprehend what had just occurred. And at the heart of it all, a human had stood beside the galaxy's greatest warrior, untouched, alive, witnessing a moment that would become legend. Jaren realized something then. Humanity's strength was not in their technology or numbers, not in fleets or weapons, but in the courage to act, to do what was right, even when the outcome was uncertain. He had healed the Empress without fear, without hesitation, and in doing so, he had sparked a chain of events that would alter the galaxy's perception of humans forever. The Empress looked at him, her expression unreadable yet approving. You are part of this, human. Your actions have consequences beyond what you can imagine. The galaxy will soon know that humans are not weak, not insignificant, and not to be dismissed, and they will see you, the one who dared to heal me. Jaren felt a mix of pride and fear, understanding that the path ahead would be dangerous, but he also felt hope, a human hope, resilient and unyielding. The Empress had shown him what humans could be when they embraced their courage and acted with heart. The ship moved forward, leaving the shattered fleets behind. Stars stretched endlessly ahead, and Jaren realized that this was only the beginning. The galaxy would challenge them, test them, and try to destroy what they represented. But humans, underestimating no longer, would endure. They would adapt. They would fight. And the Empress, with her power unmatched, would ensure that humanity's courage was recognized. Jaren stood at the observation deck, looking out at the endless stars, feeling the weight of history pressing down on him. The galaxy had underestimated humans, but that mistake would not be repeated, and he, a simple human medic, had helped set the stage. He had healed wounds, saved a life, and in doing so had helped awaken the truth. Humans were capable of far more than anyone had imagined. For the first time in his life, Jaren understood the meaning of being human. Not weak, not fragile, but resilient, resourceful, and unyielding, and he knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, he would face them. Not alone, but with the galaxy's most powerful warrior at his side, and with humanity finally ready to take its place among the stars. The battle had been won, but the war for recognition, respect, and survival had only just begun. Jaren felt the tension, the anticipation, the thrill of what was to come, and deep within him, he knew that humans would not just survive. They would inspire, endure, and in time become legendary. The galaxy had changed. Jaren felt it in the hum of the ship, in the distant signals from star systems, in the stories whispered through the comm channels. Human colonies were no longer ignored, no longer dismissed as weak or insignificant. Everywhere the legend of the Empress, and the human who had healed her, had begun to ripple outward, reaching ears that had never before paid attention. Jaren stood at the observation deck, looking at the vast expanse of stars stretching before him. The Empress moved silently behind him, her presence calm yet commanding, her eyes scanning the horizon as if reading the currents of space itself. The silence between them was comfortable, filled not with words, but with understanding. Do you realize what you have set in motion, human? She asked softly, her voice low but clear, carrying a weight that made the simple act of speaking feel like command. I think so, Jaren replied, his gaze fixed on a distant system where faint flashes of energy indicated a skirmish. They're noticing humans now, not as weaklings, but as survivors, as fighters. She nodded, her silver-patterned skin reflecting the soft light of distant stars. Yes, but it is more than that. They will remember the humans who dared to act with heart, who chose courage when hesitation was easier. And they will understand that even the smallest actions, like yours, can change the tide of history. Jaren shook his head, trying to process the enormity of what she was saying. He had merely patched her wounds, nothing more. And yet that small act had set events in motion that were rewriting the galaxy's understanding of humanity. The Empress turned from the viewport and moved to a console, her hands hovering over the controls with effortless grace. We have one more challenge, she said. One final force remains between humans and recognition. Jaren followed her, tension tightening in his chest. A console displayed a massive fleet, larger than any they had faced before. It was a combined force of alien empires, determined to eliminate the threat the Empress represented, and to punish humanity for its audacity. Ships bristled with weapons, shields glowed with fierce energy, and commands streamed through comm channels in a language Jaren did not recognize. They believe strength comes from numbers and firepower, the Empress said quietly. They do not understand humans, and they do not understand me. Jaren felt a surge of fear, quickly followed by determination. Humans might be underestimated, but they were not helpless, and with the Empress at his side, they had a chance. The battle began. Energy beams lanced across space, missiles streaked past the ship, and explosions lit the void like artificial stars. Jaren gripped the railing, heart pounding, as the Empress moved through the chaos with precision. Each gesture redirected attacks, each motion shattered weapons, and every energy pulse seemed perfectly timed. Ships that had once inspired fear disintegrated under her power, falling apart before they could reach the human colonies. Jaren watched, awestruck, as she fought, not with rage, but with calm, deliberate control. She was not a mere warrior. She was a force of nature, a living embodiment of strategy, strength, and endurance. And yet, even in the midst of overwhelming power, she trusted humans. She allowed them to act, to survive, and to witness the true extent of her abilities. This is what I wanted you to see, she said, turning to him briefly as another fleet disintegrated in a blinding flash. Your courage, your resolve, your willingness to act without knowing the outcome, these are the qualities that will define humans in the galaxy. Jaren felt a swell of pride. Humans had been underestimated for centuries, dismissed as insignificant, and now, through his simple act of healing, they were being recognized. Not for technology, not for numbers, but for their spirit. The battle raged on for hours. Jaren saw human colonies in distress, fleets struggling against overwhelming odds. Yet through it all, a new truth emerged. The humans fought back, inspired by courage, resourcefulness, and the knowledge that the Empress was with them. Engineers improvised defenses, pilots maneuvered through impossible odds, and soldiers stood their ground with unwavering determination. Each action, each small victory rippled through the larger conflict. The Empress guided them, but she did not overshadow them. She allowed humans to act, to make decisions, to assert themselves. And with every success, Jaren saw the spark of recognition in the galaxy's collective consciousness. Humans were no longer passive observers. They were participants, capable of influence, capable of shaping the outcome. At one point, a massive cruiser aimed a concentrated energy beam directly at a vulnerable human colony. Jaren felt a knot in his stomach, certain that all was lost. But the Empress moved with blinding speed, intercepting the beam with a subtle gesture. The energy dissipated harmlessly into space, leaving the colony untouched. She turned to him, calm, almost gentle, and said, "Do you see? The galaxy does not yet understand humans, but it will learn." Jaren nodded, breathing heavily.
"I see."
They will learn, and so will the rest of the galaxy. The final wave of enemy ships advanced, determined, relentless. The Empress raised her hands, and Jaren felt the ship itself respond to her will. Shields pulsed, energy arcs formed barriers, and the vessel became a living weapon. She moved through the battlefield with precision, dismantling threats one by one, yet never harming the humans under her protection. Finally, the last enemy ship hesitated. It had witnessed the full extent of her power, the courage of humans, and the undeniable link between them. In that moment, the tide of the galaxy shifted. The fleets that had once sought to dominate now faltered, retreating in awe and fear. Jaren felt a rush of relief, followed by disbelief. The battle was over. Humanity had survived, and in doing so, it had earned respect it had never known. The Empress stood beside him, her expression serene yet commanding. "The galaxy has seen humans as they never have before," she said. "They will remember this day. They will remember the courage, the resourcefulness, and the heart that defines your kind. And they will know that humans are not to be underestimated." Jaren felt tears prick at his eyes, not from fear, not from exhaustion, but from pride. Humanity had endured, not because of overwhelming technology or numbers, but because of courage, adaptability, and the simple act of doing what was right. He had healed her wounds, and that choice had sparked a chain of events that changed the galaxy forever. The Empress turned to him, her gaze softening. "You have done more than heal me, human. You have shown what your species is capable of. Never forget that. Courage, compassion, and action without hesitation. These are the qualities that will carry your people into the stars." Jaren nodded, understanding at last the weight of his actions. He had been a simple medic, a human of no great renown. Yet, through empathy, skill, and courage, he had helped alter the course of history. The ship moved toward the human colonies, returning survivors to safety, while distant star systems watched in awe. News of the battle spread quickly. Tales of humans standing alongside the galaxy's most powerful warrior, inspiring hope and respect. Humans were no longer passive, no longer dismissed. They were participants, shapers of destiny, and the galaxy had finally begun to recognize them. As they entered orbit over a human colony, the Empress looked at Jaren. "This is only the beginning," she said. "The galaxy will continue to test your people. There will be challenges, threats, and battles. But remember this: humans endure, humans adapt, and humans, when faced with courage and necessity, become legends."
Jaren smiled, a quiet, proud smile. "I understand."
"And we will be ready." The Empress placed a hand on his shoulder. A rare gesture, human in its intimacy yet powerful in its meaning. "I believe that, human." "You have already proven it." Together they watched as the colonies rebuilt, as humans took their place in a galaxy that had underestimated them for too long. Stories of courage, ingenuity, and unexpected heroism spread, inspiring not just humans, but other species as well. Humanity's reputation began to grow, not through fear or domination, but through the undeniable force of spirit and determination. Jaren realized that the act of healing, the small human choice to care, had changed everything. It had sparked courage, inspired hope, and revealed the truth. Humans were stronger than the galaxy had ever imagined. The Empress's presence remained a guiding force, but she allowed humans to rise on their own, to act, to choose, and to define their destiny. And in that choice, Jaren saw the true meaning of being human. Not weak, not fragile, but resilient, resourceful, and capable of greatness. As the stars stretched endlessly before them, Jaren knew that humanity's journey had only begun. There would be challenges and there would be threats, but the courage of a single human, simple, compassionate, and fearless, had already begun to reshape the galaxy. And in that knowledge, Jaren felt hope, pride, and an unshakable certainty. Humans were no longer overlooked. They were alive, resilient, and ready to face whatever the universe dared to throw at them. The galaxy would remember. And humanity, through courage, compassion, and the unyielding spirit of its people, would rise to claim its place among the stars. The Empress looked at him one final time. "You have done well, human. Never doubt your kind again. And remember, courage can change worlds." Jaren nodded, feeling the truth in her words resonate deep within him. Humanity had been underestimated, but no longer. The galaxy had witnessed their heart, their resolve, and their strength, and together, with courage, wisdom, and compassion, they would continue to endure, adapt, and thrive among the stars. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, bright and alive, and Jaren knew that the story of humans, and of their place in the galaxy, was only just beginning.